far. Okay, as long as Maureen holds her breath. So let's see how far we get with this. Good afternoon, everybody. We were worried this morning when we saw the weather that nobody would come, but when you invite fabulous guests, that just doesn't happen. So we're so glad to welcome Maureen Hawk here today. Maureen is a former professor at Suffolk Law University, and she has taught law, sociology, and criminology. And she has researched women in conflict with the law for over 30 years. And she's going to talk about the history of the Sherborn Reformatory for Women. And we're so happy you're here. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you. Okay, I can breathe now. All right. As she said, if I'm too loud, I have somebody that can. How are we doing back there? Doing good? Okay, Maureen Norton Hawk, and as she said, most of my research and study has been on women in conflict with the law, in particular anything to do with prisons, type of crimes that women commit, how they are handled. And so one of the really interesting areas of criminology and law is what do we do when somebody violates the law. And so what we're going to be talking about is one of the early prisons. In fact, the first women's prison in Massachusetts and the second in the United States. So it worked. Okay. So what I want to try to do first is to lay the foundation for what happened with the Sherborn Prison Reformatory. You have to think back to the late 1800s and what was going on at that time. And during that time, there was such a huge expansion of ideas, of services, of industry. I mean, everything was sort of expanding. And look at some of the different things that were developed and that emerged in the late 1800s. You have your pharmaceuticals, which is good. You have to start having drugs for treating different illnesses. Sometimes they got a little carried away, and so but anyway, pharmaceuticals. Okay, all these different areas were being expanded. Pharmaceuticals, great. We now have drugs to treat ourselves, but they didn't understand a lot of what was going on with certain drugs. So one of the ones that they believed in was that if you had a baby that was teething, that you would take laudanum, which is an extract of opium, and you know what? You put it on their gums, and you know what? The babies didn't cry anymore, and they weren't in pain. It worked. Now, whether or not these kids grew up to have, addiction problems, we don't know. But they were using gold in a certain substance. So if you were a guy, you would line up at these different facilities, and if you were addicted to alcohol, they would give you an injection of this gold mixture, and that was supposedly going to cure you of your addiction to alcohol. We came up with the light bulb, telephone, sewing machine, very, very important. Last one, late 1800s. I'm trying to think, is that before that? Was that the Sears Roebuck thing that you hear about? I don't know. I'm just glad they invented it in the late 1800s, when they did. Okay. Because of all the changes, it was an area of massive reform. They were reforming everything. We were going to get rid of alcohol. They should go to Carrie Nation with the hatchet. Women's status. They were saying, hey, women should have the same rights as men. So we're going to reform that. Public ed, Massachusetts, one of the first, 1852, required mandatory education for boys 8 to 12. They had to go 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Mental illness. We started believing that we could reform and help people who were mentally ill and somehow allow them or teach them so that they could actually function in society. Here's a crummy picture of Foxborough State Hospital. And most of us in our younger years have been over there and sort of kind of wandered through the halls. We even thought that, it had to take care of the animals. Mass Society for the Prevention to Cruelty to Animals, 1868. So it was this notion that society had ills, but we, as a society, could fix these things. They could be reformed. We don't give up on these things. Hit the right button, Maureen. Reform women. Okay, so we can reform all these other things. Let's reform women. Why do we need to reform women? 20% of the women that were incarcerated in Boston House of Correction and the Boston City Jail were women. And they said, wait a minute, something's wrong here. You know, women are nice, they don't commit crime. What are they doing in jail? So they said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a certain group of women, fallen women, women who had been involved in drinking or prostitution, but the minor crimes, the little things. We don't want the hardened criminals because they have already committed to a life of crime. Don't want the mentally ill. We don't want old people to set in their ways, not me, of course. Vagrants, don't want vagrants. So they had a particular group that they believed they could help and they could reform, and that these people would become contributing members of society. They also wanted any women that they were going to bring over there, they wanted them to have an indeterminate sentence, something of a year or more. The reason being is if I'm going to try to reform you, it might take no, not you particularly. Okay, let me pick on somebody. Okay, but if I was going to reform the gentleman in the back, it might take more than a year, right? So they wanted sentences of at least a year because they wanted a little bit of time, because some people might need a little bit more time to get it together. Why so many women that were incarcerated in Boston? Immigration. In the 1870s, 114,000 Irish immigrants came into Boston. They made up 30% of the population in Boston. So, I mean, can you imagine, even for us, if all of a sudden a group that wasn't like us, that didn't talk like us, that didn't behave like us, that didn't do jobs like us, all of a sudden came to Walpole, people were upset, so they wouldn't help them. You know, it was hard to find a job, it was hard to find housing, so both the men and the women had to somehow come up with ways to support themselves, support their children. Oftentimes, these people ended up involved in different types of crime or criminal behavior. Now, on November 7th, November 7th, 1877, this is the South Boston House of Corrections. A Sheriff Clark helped 40 women from that facility get on buses, not buses, sorry, a little early, carriages. Here's one of the carriages, or the type of carriage they would use. I'm pretty sure, maybe somebody, I think this is Scully Square. Isn't anybody, does that look like Scully Square? I tried to, okay. I'm pretty sure that's Scully Square. One of the interesting thing in the late 1800s, can you imagine being female and wearing those long dresses and walking through the streets after people and animals and carts? I just wonder how they hand, I see her and I think, wow, how did you manage? A lot of laundry maybe. So took 40 women by carriage, put them on the Boston and Albany train from Boston and to Framingham. And when they got to Framingham, they were also put on carriages and then brought here. Now, the first impression is that, can you imagine, even if you have been involved in crime, coming up to this facade, to this facility, in a carriage? I mean, this place is humongous. I mean, it's a huge facade. I would be terrified. You know, even if I had been involved in certain kind of criminality, it just is so overwhelming. What they would do is the carriage would come in here And I don't know if you can see it, there's a little opening so the carriage can get through that opening where the women, the 40 women, were taken off. And then they were put into this main building here where we start the intake. But let me tell you a little bit about the Sherborn Reformatory Prison for Women. It is a massive, massive, massive building. Different sections here. This back section, it's not a good way to do this here. This very back section, this holds the library, the school, the chapel, and the hospital. Within the hospital is a nursery, and we'll talk about the nursery later. This next section right in here, that's the probation part. So after they do the intake, the women are sent to probation. They want to see how they do for a couple weeks and see whether or not they can be part of the larger community. This area here is where the kitchen, the laundry, the sewing room, any type of work that the women did was done in this section here. You had 4 divisions, 3 stories each. This facility could hold up to 500 people. And that was pushing it. But you have, after probation, you went to Section 1, or Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4. Each one, you got a few more options. You had a few more things that you could do. You were given sort of, maybe you could go out, and if you were in Division 4, you could go out hiking with the matron. So with each one, they tried to reward the women for proper behavior enough time so that after you have done your one particular division, you could move to the next division. This here is where the superintendent lived. So she definitely lived within the facility. So if she was needed, I don't know how well you can see it, there's like a little bridge that goes from her house to the actual facility. So she was easily accessed. One of the rules on building this facility was that it had to be run by women. It was a prison for women, run by women. And they thought that was really very important as a way to give the proper examples to these women of what women acted like. So this is a proper woman, and these women were fallen women. So what I'm going to do is give you a person, or have you follow the example set by women that are proper ladies. And you'll see more of how this works. As I said, this place, you didn't have to ever leave. Well, that's not a good way of saying it. That is not a good way. It had everything that you needed. Everything that you needed within the confines of this facility. They had a stock barn. They had poultry. They had farm. They had greenhouses. They had everything they needed. They never had to go outside this facility. It was just so huge. When we start looking at the inside, you'll see how extensive it is. Okay, that's only. Now, Sherborn, you notice that it's called the Sherborn Reformatory Prison for Women. Here's Sherborn. What they did back in the 1870s, they said, okay, we're going to have a women's prison. Now, where do we put it? So they thought Sherborn was trying to find a good place to locate things. Sherborn is a good place to put it. And we're not going to put it near the center. They gave the Reformatory 18 acres up in that little tiny corner up there, and well away from the center of where a lot of the good people lived, but they put it out there. And a couple of problems. It was on a little hill in a swamp. Yeah, right. Who was doing the thinking here? Yeah, I mean, seriously. So water, accessing water was a problem. Where do you get the water from? You know, it's swampy and marshy. So they were getting the water. They made an arrangement with Framingham to supply them with water. What's the other problem besides water if you're living on a hill in a swamp? Insects. Insects, definitely a problem. What else? Yes. Sewerage. I wanted one of you to say it besides me, but nobody. But, you know, what do you do with the sewerage? You know, they didn't have cesspool type of things. They tried using the rivers, the small little streams around it to go and draw it away. The first annual report talks about how sometimes in the summer it got a little rough out there, and whoever said insects increased the number of insects. I mean, on a hot summer day. So eventually, what they did, working with Framingham, they started working with ways to get water and get rid of the waste. But it was, just a small little part in Sherborn. And see right along there, that's where the train ran from Boston, and you can see when it comes into Framingham, here's where they were dropped off and then put by carriage and then brought to the facility over here. Where's that button? What happens intake? You come into that ungodly, awful-looking building, and we're probably scared out of your pants. When they first came in, there was this huge ledger, and they would put all the information, and the ledger is double the size. So this is just one side of the ledger. It has another side equal as large. And you can see the first 40 woman, the 40th woman was Maggie Murphy. So the names, yeah. What? Are you Maggie? Oh my God! Welcome. You've done well. Yeah. Now that's a success story. Any Hannah Sullivans here? Do we have a Hannah Sullivan? She's number one. Anybody? So you have the name, age, the town. Notice the island, the number of island there. And then they ask them all kinds of questions about, can you read or write? Do you have a drinking problem? Have you ever been intemperate? What religion are you? So this goes on for another. So this is just half of the ledger. One of the things that shows what age, what period of time it was. There were 4 women of color that were also in that first group. And you have colored. You know, so I mean, it's a real different way of defining. You know, I saw it, okay, women of color, they had 4 out of 40. What they also did at intake, I don't know what you remember about what you learned in, in psychology, but late 1800s, the belief was that criminality could be determined by the shape of your head, by the size of your ears, by the length of your legs. Do you remember Lombroso and the whole thing that they thought if they felt your I'm not going to touch you. You're sad. You're okay. Yeah, but they would feel your head, looking for lumps or bumps or how your head was shaped. So, and they thought that could define criminality. So this guy, Berdilian, what he did, he had a number of different instruments. This one here was for measuring the forearm, middle, and little finger. So this one here. This one here, small sliding compass, was for measuring the ear. It's particularly important to find out I'll show you what they measure, but anyway. What is it about an ear? How can you tell if a person is criminal if by something on their ear? This one here is for your larger, like your left leg, your right leg, so your larger extremities. And then they would have little cards. Now, this one was in 1907. I could not find one for 1877. It has the height, how much she weighs, her head length. Her right ear, head length and width. Her right ear, her width, the length of your right ear, and then the width of your right ear. Here you have your left foot, your middle foot, middle finger, little finger, and your forearm. Finally, over here, you have, your left eye, looking at the color of your eye. Does that make a difference? But down here, that even gets weirder. Your forehead. How's your forehead? Is it short? Is it broad? Is it, crinkled? So hers was straight, low, and broad. Then the nose. Let me check out your noses. We're going to measure it. If your nose is broad and flat, is it very sharp and narrow? Each of those makes a difference. And right ear, here are all the things. Her ear was, there was a gulf, it was pierced, something, I don't know what those two mean. But they thought if in fact they could collect this information on these women, they might be able to better understand criminality generally. So they were like guinea pigs to try to move science ahead a bit. This is after they did the intake. This is the probation corridor. Heaters, they stayed in the probation corridor for 3 weeks. They had no contact with anybody else. They ate in their room. They worked in their room. They brought food in the room. It looks like both these women are cleaning. And please notice, and you'll see that in other pictures, the dresses are all pretty much the same. And I never knew never could figure out if they made them themselves or if, in fact, they were provided by the facility. But they're trying to get the women to dress like ladies, in ladies' wear. So all the dresses are pretty much the same, but they're very ladylike, very feminine. You can't see on this one here. I think I mentioned those heaters. I think I would have rather stayed in probation myself. This is where you move up to if you have good behavior in probation. You get to go here. I would have rather stayed in the other place. I'm serious. At least, So you have 3 tiers, barbed door, the barbed doors, cell doors, and then you have that woman in the black dress. She looks mean to me. I mean, she really does. I'm pretty sure she's the matron, and this woman is the inmate, but I wouldn't mess with her. She just does not look friendly. But the women, stayed with each division. So when you're in Division 1, you do not mingle with Division 2, 3, or 4. I mean, everything is a separate entity. And hence, if you remember, when I was showing you the buildings, how you had each separate building, there was no blending of people. Here's Division 4, much nicer. As you go up in division, there's no bars. It's just like a hotel room. The rooms are 6 feet by 9 feet. And I actually was going to go and bring some tape and show you. It's a pretty good size. You never double bunked. You didn't share a room. So you had, pretty good digs here. And here you have no bars. You have just a regular door. Notice at the end of the hall down there, they actually have curtains. So as you're working your way up, more and more benefits. They try to make it more and more lifelike. Punishment corridor, you got to have one. It's a prison. So they it looks awful mean. I can't tell. I think that is some sort of screen, like a mosquito screen. I'm not sure what this here is. Is it a screen type of thing where they can see out? I don't know. But they could be easily closed in. If you were really bad, they put you in a dark room, and I never could get any more information about what a dark room is, but if you were really seriously in pain, they would, bring this up a little bit more. Punishment, all right, solitary confinement. Why would you get punished? Running down a hall, slamming a door. I mean, very, very minor offenses. If, in fact, you didn't walk properly. So if you were Division 1, you walked with your hands. So if you were walking anywhere, you would do this number. If you were Division 2 or 3, you got to put your hands behind your back and walk that way. If you were Division 4, you could go and you could swing an arm. So they gave little favors to people, but if you violated some of these, they would actually punish you for violating. It was, and they really thought that all these things like slamming doors, it sounds silly, they wanted to try to make ladies out of these women, or at least give them the option of being ladylike enough that they could participate in the larger society. So all these things, they sound a little silly, they were actually trying to move the women forward. One of the rules that, again, this definitely would get you into solitary confinement. What do you notice about the dining room? Can you see it? Yeah, tablecloths, yeah. And tablecloths only came with Division 4. So, okay, but what else do you notice?
One-sided table.
Yes, exactly. The chairs are back to back. They didn't want you conversing with anybody else. There was a no talking rule throughout the facility. It must have been very quiet. But so to make sure that they couldn't communicate, they didn't have eye contact, they would set up the dining room so the chairs were back to back. Yeah, I mean, it's one way of and see, if you did violate, then that would be up to punishment. So the women were pretty good about that. Background of some of the women, I don't know, did they give you handouts of any? Oh, no. Oh, okay, can you see some of this okay? Yeah, they were going to give handouts because some of the writing is small. All right, and also, does anybody notice anything about that yellow line? Not the information, but the way that that's me as an old person. They had the crayon on the program and trying to get that yellow line straight. Sorry, that was the best I could do with it. The hand just kept saying, no, straight. Anyways, as you can see, American birth and parentage, American birth and foreign parentage, as you would expect, foreign birth and parentage. So you were born somewhere to another country, and your parents were born in another country. Ireland, I don't know why, because it's the most important one, I'm sure, it got squished. And it's 247. So 794 women came through Sherborn that first year. Of that 247, so what, maybe a third, who can do math quick? But a third? But a third their parents were born in Ireland, and they were born in Ireland. And as you can see, how it's all broken down. You had a couple of other countries up in Northern Europe. But, I mean, a large percent, about half, were foreign birth and foreign parentage. And that's why this whole thing with, what to do, or bringing in people from Ireland, I think I just messed it up. Hope not. Crimes. Adultery, night walking, common night walker, disreputable house, fornication, house of ill fame, lewd, wanton, lascivious. Am I off?
No. These are the handouts.
Oh, okay. What a question to ask. Am I off? There will be some people in my family, my brother, who would agree that I'm a lot off. But anyway, and night walking. One of the questions sometimes I'm asked is, what's the difference between common drunken and drunkenness? How often you do it? Common beggar, common night walker. You're out in the streets a lot. What's another common? I'm going to do just plain night walking, disreputable, okay. Adultery, 22. A couple of interesting ones, disobedient and stubborn. If you are not minding your P's and Q's with your husband, they could, or with a law officer, but with your parents, they could have you placed in Sherborn. What was a couple of the other ones? House of ill fame. Oh, the stillborn child. Yeah, that's a sad one. If, in fact, during that time, if you had a baby and there was nobody else present and that baby died, there was some question whether or not you killed the baby. But if somebody was there and the baby died, they would say, okay, wasn't that the child was killed after birth. But if you gave birth alone and the child died, there could be some real serious questions on, did you kill the baby? If you added in things, is it a poor woman? Is it somebody that has other problems? Would that increase the likelihood of this? One thing I wanted to ask, does anybody, please, somebody take a guess what breaking glass is? What?
Store windows.
Yes, good, yes, why? Why? You're absolutely right. Why?
I'm experienced.
Oh, Lord. Oh, you should be doing the talk. Come on up. So, you're breaking glass. No, you're windows. Okay. Well, a little bit more. What was going on? What was going on in the late 1800s? What were women doing? We were getting real uppity. What were we doing?
They were Greek. They were dancing.
They were dancing. No.
Speaking.
What?
Can.
The what?
Can. Did you
No, not dancing. No, what they were doing.
They were trying to get the vote.
Yeah, but they're not just the vote, but the whole thing to stop drinking. Remember Carrie Nation and her group? They didn't have a rule or a law that she was offending, so her and her group that were going into the taverns, beating the crap out of the mirrors and the windows and stuff like that, they had to have a law that she was breaking. So that was the breaking glass. I think that's on that one. How are we doing on time? Good. Okay, they kept the women very, very busy. Busy hands are happy hands. This is one of the pictures from the chapel. Now remember, they had a chapel, that whole line of buildings towards the back. They had a chapel, a lot of pictures. This is just one of the pictures of Jesus forgiving a sinner. And I couldn't find it. I'm assuming it's Jesus forgiving a whore, but I couldn't find that. I couldn't find that this picture was that. So they went to church twice a day, had 2 services a day. On Sunday, they had only one service, but it was with a sermon. So it was a very long service. They went to school. They had a whole schoolroom there. And what they did is they divided the women up. If you were illiterate, if you could not speak English, if you could not read, if you could not write, you went to school every single day. And if, in fact, you did have some education and could read and write, you would only have to go to school in the evening. So remember what they're trying to do with these women. These are women who they thought they could reform. So all we need to do is give them the right pieces so that they can function in the society. The women learned a tremendous amount of different trades. They provided their own food, so they cooked their own food. So this is a picture of the kitchen. Doesn't that bread look good? I mean, fresh bread. Couldn't you just take a hunk? Don't even need butter on it. You must have just looked at the medical. Never mind. Laundry. laundry. Mine come back. So the women did all the laundry. Again, notice the outfits that they're wearing. They have those little flouncy things. I don't know, is there a name for those? The little, see how it's cut down there?
Not a muscle.
Is it, but it looks like, what, is there a name for it? A muscle? A bustle, okay. Yeah, so each of them have it, and notice the designs are the same. So I couldn't find out if somebody made the clothes for them or if they had to make them themselves, but it looked like they had to make them similarly. So they did the laundry, and I keep looking at this picture. Can you imagine doing that when it's 100 degrees or 90 degrees and you're walking in the laundry? And I had a question, what is this? It's a dryer? Wow, okay. Well, that just made the room about 20 degrees hotter. So, okay, and it's heated by whatever heating source and it just dries the clothes. That is so cool. No, I went looking for that, and I thought, what is that? Oh, okay, it's a dryer. They had a general sewing room and a shirt sewing room where they would make clothes, and those clothes would be sold. You can't see it doesn't projecting real. It must be chilly in there, but each of these women have a shawl on. Bad picture. They were revenue producers, so all that work that they were doing, they went out and they could sell it. Now, they didn't get the money. The facility got the money. So they made cane, worked with cane seats, washing. I love the socks. Yeah, they would darn socks and make socks, but they also would get the socks from the male's prison so that the women, because we're sewers, could go and mend the male sock. Not fair. Corsets, I wondered how that would work with the stays and all, but anyway. Other garments, shirts, pants, clothes, they did all kinds of needlework. In that first year, they raised $4,500 for the facility. So, yeah, and $4,500 in late 1800s was a good piece of change. Medical. All right, lots of problems. They saw over 500 women, or 500 cases, and most of them alcoholism, DT, your drinking problems. You have gonorrhea and syphilis for your sex problems, and you have your morphia habit for your drug problems. And so some of the other ones, I had a list. The cancroids. This one here, that's STDs. I mean, I didn't know what these, so I started looking. Okay. ERY, I don't know how to pronounce it. ERY, erysipelas. That is a skin disorder. Marasmus, malnutrition. Trismus over here, that's lockjaw. And PHT, where's the P's? This one here is a lung disorder. And somebody asked me the other day what quinsy was, and I gave them the wrong answer. Quinsy is infected tonsils. But, they were busy taking care of the women. They had a number of illnesses. The syphilis at 44, probably not surprising that 6 of the little kids died because their mom had syphilis. So when they were given birth, they contracted the illness also. This here is the nursery. The nursery over that first year, on average, had 60 kids. You could have kids there up to 2.5 years. This practice ended way, way later than I ever knew. 1956. They were still allowing children to be up to 2.5 years to be with their mother, in prison. Now, I didn't get an answer whether or not if you had children outside. So when you came in, did you bring your children with you, or were these relegated to just children that were born in the prison? On average, about 30 children were born this first year. But I mean, it looks like such a nice room. You can just imagine all the light coming in, all the cribs and the rocking chairs. So if you have a baby that is just, very cranky and irritable and stuff, you can sit with the child. But, it's just really seeing, they were trying to, and again, you have to remember, they weren't trying to punish, reform. Kids are going to be part of your life. You're going to need to know how to take care of your children, how to integrate them into your new life. Now, how are we doing it? Oh my God, I'm way early, but I think people have questions. Name change. In 1911, the Reformatory prison for women at Sherborn became just the Reformatory for women at Sherborn. They said, hey, this is a reformatory. It's not a prison. We need to take the word prison out of this. We're going to delete that. So by law, they actually removed the word prison. So in 1911, it became the Reformatory for women at Sherborn. No more prison. 32, the Reformatory for women became the Reformatory for women at Framingham. Remember that little piece of property that I showed you way up here in Sherborn? Well, the state took 525 acres and they moved it over and they gave it to Framingham because Framingham was sort of doing a lot of the work, and they said you might as well have access to it. And there were some small farms adjacent, and they also wanted to be in Framingham because it was closer. It was closer to them and it made things easier for them. But the town of Sherborn was not as supportive of losing this land. One of the reasons being is that having the first reformatory for women in the United States, they were wrong about that, there was one before that, but in the world, gave them a lot of sort of class, say, they just thought they were proud of that. Who else can have that? So they thought that brought credit to the town of Sherborn. So even though it did happen, Sherborn was not supportive, not 100% supportive. 1955, we said, hey, we were wrong about reform. Can't do it. Skip the reform. We're done with it. We tried. In 1955, it became Massachusetts Correctional Institution. No more reform. We gave it our best shot, guys. We tried. They were good. These were fallen women. They weren't hardened criminals. It's just not working. I mean, there's all kinds of explanations why it didn't work. Some people say, well, they started letting hardened criminals come in. And I mean, it's just a lot of explanations why they finally gave up. Something else happened that I thought was so interesting. 1973, there was this movement how can I put this? People in the prison were having a problem that there were so many same-sex relationships going. They said, oh no, this is getting out of hand. Too many same-sex relationships. So, what do you think they did, sir? Yes, exactly. They brought men over from the men's prison to live in the women's prison. How well did that work? It lasted not quite a decade, but you could see. I could actually picture you could see the guys going, do, 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 do. We're all going to meet out here. And the women going, do, do, do. And every night there was probably this path, one from the women's, one from the men's, so they could go meet on the grounds at night. But I thought, sometimes I wonder what our state is using. No, I'm serious. Who comes up with these ideas? So, seriously, it lasted not quite 10 years, and they said, maybe those same-sex relationships aren't so bad. And we're going to go back to the same-sex relationships. They win. All right, here's a picture of MCI Framingham currently. And you can see the newer build, but you can also, what's fascinating, is you can see the old build. You can see the old, the pictures that we saw first, the old, and they're all dilapidated. They're really, I would give anything to get into that place. I really would. Almost anything. So this, it's the old section. I believe this was the front part that we saw earlier, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm sort of questioning because this here has the large chimneys, so that might have been where the, the kitchen and the laundry and everything was. I'm not sure, but this is all going to end up being taken down. As you can see, it's really, really falling apart. This is South Middlesex. That I don't think it's going anywhere. Let me see what else on here. This is where the building there is where the women are primarily housed now. And there's some cottages that are hard to see on the far left-hand side that the women reside in. All right. So there are 230 women currently at MCI. And these women cost us, per woman, $235,000. $235,000 for each and every single woman. Cost us $235,000. The total cost per year is over $5 million for this group of women in Framingham. Now, we can possibly, different ways we can account for, they need extra COs because so much of it is dilapidated, it has to be monitored. You don't want the, people to wander over and then have a huge lawsuit. So, it has to be monitored, so you need a lot of correction officers. Supposedly, they have a number of different programs for the women. Only 3 prison facilities cost more than MCI Framingham, and that is Bridgewater, and that is Shattuck Hospital. Is Shattuck closed? I know that this one is closed.
No, the Shattuck's closed.
Okay, all right, take that one off. And this one here, Chess closed in June. So when did Shattuck close? The one at that Mass?
Yeah, a couple of years.
Maybe because it costs so much. Yeah, so then we have Bridgewater. Is that still open? Okay, all right, still open. This one they closed in June. So now we should have more money to pay for the women up here. Okay, it could work. They started talking about what are we going to do with this prison? It costs too much. The women are not getting the services they need. What are we going to do? In 2019, Governor Baker started talking about the dilapidated condition of MCI Framingham. And definitely in 2020, because of COVID, many of the women and the corrections officers and the staff were getting sick. In a prison, it's real hard to isolate people and keep them, from separate, even in a building that has those nice divisions. So they started talking about, what are we going to do? We got a problem. So starting around the Baker administration, and each time they do this, they put out 3 bids. So we're paying money to get the bids. So renovate MCI Framingham was going to cost us $80 million. Now notice the 3 little stars. That's important for later. That was going to be $80 million. Build a new women's prison. So forget MCI Framingham. It's old, it's dilapidated, bulldozer, do whatever. But we'll build an entirely new prison. $50 million. Okay, sounds like a bargain. Out of the 2, 50 sounds better. They said, we have a better idea. For $20 million, we could fix up Bay State Correctional in Norfolk. And in fact, they said, that's the idea. $20 million, fix it up. And what they planned on doing was the women were going to be moved in the spring of 2024 from MCI Framingham over to Bay State Correctional. They never moved. Why? Right. In other words, we had a large number of people coming in through the airport. They had nowhere to go. So Governor Healy was putting people that they were coming into the airport, she was putting them in hotels, motels, any spaces that she could find. And she said, whoa, I got a space for you. So put these, just started, and I couldn't find out whether or not I think they had already started rehabbing it because they had, said that the women would be coming over in the spring of 2024, but I don't know that. But they said, okay, so we're not going to send them over to Bay State. And you know what I wondered? I actually started wondering, well, maybe now that supposedly at the end of July, they're going to be moving these people out. They're going to be moving these people out. And then women could move over in the end of July or beginning of August if the population that is currently in there, were relocated. I couldn't believe this. I had this presentation. Okay, nice ending. Okay, nice closure. June 30th, a couple of days ago, a week, Governor Maura Healey said, capital investment, what we're going to do, we're going to fix up MCI Framingham. And for the budget year, she proposed for the for that 1 year, 2026, 2027, next year, to start transforming MCI Framingham. The first year, it was going to cost us $20 million to reimagine what this facility was going to look like. Do you know something? I could do it for a lot cheaper than $20 million. I'm serious. $20 million for, okay, they talked about things that they would want, a re-entry, medical, drug, alcohol, voc rehab, okay. I just don't see how that's $20 million. But yeah, I don't know. Now that's for just 1 year. The total cost for what she's thinking of, $360 million. How did we get from $80 million, people, to $360 million? They were talking, hey, they had put out bids on it and said, hey, this is, when we got the $80 million, there were 3 bids, $80 million. Yeah, so it's just very different. Anyways, any questions, people? There are a couple people mentioned that they had experiences with MCI Framingham and the woman,
Did you ever have any dealings with the women that were the Framingham Five?
No, I did not. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, can you willing to share?
At a conference, I went into Boston. I'm a member of the Massachusetts Nurses Association. We had a couple of them speak at a conference.
Good.
And actually, I think a couple of them were repeat.
Oh, wow.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
They might not even be still oriented.
Yeah, I don't know, but that would have been so interesting.
What happens with the life? Women or men? What do they do?
There. They were too far gone. Sure.
Are they, and I know you've had experience in legal and all that, have they done much as far as rehabilitation? Like, what are they doing for the women today?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to exhale on you. The thing that's frustrating, having done this, and I also worked as a social worker, I'm MSW, and MA, and I've done counseling, drug counseling, alcohol counseling, and the thing that they've done rehab before, I wonder if, I don't know what else we can do. I mean, the things that they were talking about in the reimagining thing, we're already doing. We have reentry programs. We have drug programs. We have bring your children in. We'll show you how to be a mom programs. We have programs to try voc rehab programs. I'm not sure what else. The things when they talked about reimagining is exactly what we're trying to do now. I mean, I don't understand. Although history, I guess we always try to repeat ourselves. I mean, if you don't know history, what is the saying? If you don't know history, you're damned, or what is it? Bound to repeat it. Yeah. And I don't know if that's why. It seems we do the same thing, we get the same result.
I read a book, I wish I could remember the title, but it was all about, in the 1800s, if a husband was displeased with his wife, he could send her to a mental institution.
Yes, either mental institution.
Right. And it was a lot of women lost their mind in there because it was so brutal.
Yeah.
And every year he would give so much to the institution, and so they would never release her.
There are a number of cases.
Very sad book. I couldn't even.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know because I know
I knew the name of that book.
Foxborough State Hospital, they would put people there against their will for years at a time and not let them out for things, very minor offenses. Sometimes your wife, get rid of the wife. Sometimes you get rid of the husband. Get rid of the rich uncle. You want the money. I mean, some of the things from the old Foxborough newspapers, it's fascinating reading what they did. Other.
There was a case in Walpole where this woman had 5 children, and I guess she had problems dealing with all 5. Husband put her in Foxborough, and she stayed there until her children got older, and they got her out.
Wow.
She didn't belong there.
Yeah.
All those years she spent there.
People go into Foxborough for a minimum, if they had certain characteristics, for 2 years. And the thing with Foxborough State Hospital is it was not cordoned off. So you can read the old Foxborough news things where they go and they talk. Yeah, and they would go and they'd pick them up and they'd bring them back. And one of the scariest things, I was a little kid, and my mom did sewing, and she would have me dress up in the clothes that she sewed and she made, and she'd bring me over to Foxborough State Hospital and have me model the clothes. I was a little kid. I was so scared. Has anybody else been in that place before it? That was the scariest place. That was so scary. Oh my God, you came in one side and the door would slam, and I was terrified. Mom, you scarred me on that one, Mom. Other questions? People?
There was the Mattapan State Hospital, and I remember there was a woman who did not belong there. And I remember my grandmother took her out and got custody of her.
Oh, wow.
And she lived with her and helped her. But there was nothing wrong with her mentally.
Yeah.
And my grandmother knew.
Well, and they had that one, if you remember the crimes, idle, and disobedient. And if you were a woman and you were idle or you were disobedient, hey, bye-bye. Yeah, it was an amazing time. Other questions, thoughts? Thank you all very much, and thank you for being patient with me and this stupid thing. Thank you very much.